now they are claiming kimchi as their own. Come on. It's just full on crazy, it's ridiculous, and it does not make sense at all. 안녕하세요, 하이채드입니다. So you may have heard the news already, but there was a big controversy in China where Korean YouTuber Hemji, who does a lot of mukbang videos, basically was criticized by a lot of people in China for liking a comment that was basically pointing out that a lot of people in China, or maybe a lot of Chinese social media influencers, were claiming Korean food, especially kimchi, as their own. After it caused a big uproar in China, her agency over there, a Chinese company who manages all of her media, all of her distribution in China, they terminated their contract with her. And this was after she apologized for potentially offending anybody, saying that she just liked the comment. I mean, she didn't even say the comment herself for 1 and 2. I don't think it was anything bad to say that she should have had to apologize for in the first place, but still they terminated her contract. In this video, I'm going to share my thoughts on Hemji, kimchi, China, all the above, and then also kind of get some thoughts from around the world, some commentary that I've seen internationally related to this kind of controversy or this issue with China. So my very first thought was that I didn't think Hemji needed to apologize. I didn't think she said anything wrong, but I understand why she did, and I understand why maybe she felt the pressure to. I haven't seen any of her YouTube videos. Everything I know about her is from the articles that I've read recently, but I really liked what she said in relation to her apology and kind of a follow-up to the apology. She says, if I have to say that kimchi is a Chinese food to actively promote in China, then I choose not to promote at all in China. I hope that Chinese netizens understand that Chinese YouTubers or celebrities do not need to say that Chinese food is Korean to promote in Korea. I really respect that a ton because I know that she's probably losing a lot of money by not being able to promote in China. But even though she knows that, she's not willing to say something that she doesn't believe just in order to get more money. I have so much respect for that. If you want me to say that kimchi is not Korean food, then I just won't promote here. Ton of respect for that, for her standing up for herself and standing up for her country. And it's interesting because I've actually heard about similar issues recently between Korea and China. I had a viewer send me a message talking about hanbok, the traditional Korean wear, and how that was being claimed by China. And I thought it was really interesting that this stuff is kind of going on right now. And I have a thought that's completely my own thought, that maybe China is a little bit jealous of Korea right now. Korea is going through this massive wave of popularity, I think, right now, with K-pop, Korean dramas, Parasite winning several Oscars. Korean food has become so much more prevalent over the last probably 5 years that it becomes a really common thing that most people, I think at this point, really know what kimchi is and they know what Korean barbecue is. So I'm kind of wondering if with all this positive publicity that Korea has been getting over the last couple of years especially, if China maybe, and I can't say China as a whole, but maybe some of the influencers of China, maybe they feel a little bit jealous because really, unfortunately, the only thing that China's been associated with recently is the coronavirus, which is very unfortunate, and I don't maybe think that that's fair just to talk about China coronavirus. But I very well could see that maybe there's a little jealousy coming from the Chinese side about the international kind of popularity that Korea has gained very recently. And I do emphasize that it's some people in China, that it's some of these social media influencers, that it's certainly not everybody. I don't want to be creating any stereotypes or like endorsing any stereotypes about, you know, every Chinese person is trying to steal Korean culture. Obviously, it's probably very limited in the number of people, but certainly there have been several recent incidents with Chinese social media influencers kind of claiming parts of Korean culture as their own. Which obviously is not really an okay thing to do. And I'm also really disappointed with Hemji's Chinese social media company, or whatever you want to call it, terminating her contract, all because she liked a comment, and in fact liked a comment that appears to me to be very much true. So while I was kind of reading up on kimchi and its roots in terms of, you know, how far back it goes with Korean history, Korean culture, I found this article in the New York Times from about 3-4 years ago that I find to be very interesting. At the time, there was a lot of growing anti-Korean sentiment in China. So what's interesting is that during this kind of anti-Korean sentiment that was being felt around the country, nationalists vowed not to eat kimchi or Korean barbecue, right? So what's the reason for that? Well, the reason for that is that they associate kimchi and Korean barbecue with Korea, of course, right? In their anti-Korean sentiment, they decide they're not going to eat kimchi or Korean barbecue. Two things, the two foods that they associate with Korea. But now you have other people in China basically saying, no, kimchi is actually ours. So if that were the case, if the Chinese people thought of kimchi as their own, as the own part of their culture that they had created, that they had invented and was such a staple part of their heritage, then why on earth would they boycott kimchi in trying to send a negative message towards Korea? Now they are claiming kimchi as their own. Come on. It's just full on crazy, it's ridiculous, and it does not make sense at all. And create this huge controversy for Hemji, who really doesn't deserve this controversy at all. So I was curious to kind of get a sense of what the international community thought about this, what people thought about online, who had heard the news, what their opinion was about it. So I found some comments, gonna go through those. Let's see what they have to say. So this says, can those nationalists calm down for once, calling out someone using derogatory and even racist slurs? Kimchi is Korean, end of argument. The Chinese, not content with stealing technology, wealth, and land from other countries, is now also trying to steal national dishes from others. Disgusting. The whole world knows that kimchi is from Korea. And so that's kind of a popular sentiment I saw in these comments, that like everybody already knows that kimchi is Korean. It's not like some subtle thing. I mean, you really associate kimchi with Korea. And really, I think overall, this is not good for the reputation of China, because really, I mean, China does have a bit of a reputation for kind of copying things or stealing things. I'm not gonna agree with all of them, I'm simply passing along these comments, but I can see how that reputation is there, and so I don't think this helps China. This one is interesting, and I don't know if this is true. You guys would know much better than me, but it says, according to all the history sites, it originated in Korea. They can trace it back to 1st century BC. So the first part I do know is true. All things say that it originated in Korea. I had no idea that you could trace kimchi all the way back to 1st century BC. If that's true, very, very cool. But the fact that she chose not to promote in China at all, if she has to say that kimchi is Chinese food, deserves praise. Again, something that I mentioned before, I absolutely love that. And she does deserve praise for saying that she wouldn't promote in China if she had to say that. So a simple comment here, but isn't it? Yeah, it was exactly my thought. Why would you get in trouble for saying something like that is true? I mean, kimchi is Korean food. Why would you get in trouble for agreeing with that? How does that make sense? The Chinese always claim other things are theirs, and now it's kimchi. Again, that's like a popular sentiment I've seen, is that, you know, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. By the way, Hamzi always liked every comment, but I agree kimchi is a Korean dish, right? I mean, that's another thing, is like, if you have that many comments, you're probably liking a lot of them. That's why I feel like, regardless of what the comment said, and since she apologized, it wasn't fair to punish her with terminating, you know, her media activities in China. So this is another comment that really made sense to me. I've never seen kimchi or assam as a food option in China or at Chinese restaurants, even the 4 to 5 star authentic Chinese restaurants. I've only seen it in Korea and at Korean restaurants. LOL, crazy. Very, very true. I mean, I've been to quite a few Chinese restaurants. I went to one last week, actually. I've never seen kimchi there. Not sure what her agency was thinking, but I think the YouTuber's right, which is very true. If you go to Wikipedia, you look at kimchi, it's all about Korea's history with kimchi, all the different kinds. There's a lot of Korean writing on there showing the different names in Korean and in English. And there's not really anything about China other than controversy about China claiming that, you know, kimchi is either theirs or like boycotting kimchi. And then this in response, truly a country which doesn't have democratic institutions uses nationalism to prop up their regime. That's a really interesting thought. And we're gonna get into this a little more here, where this journalist, his name is Stephen, I think his name is Borowicz, Stephen Borowicz, he criticized the Chinese media and said, the Chinese media's claims that China leads the kimchi industry is true in the sense that the country is the world's largest producer of kimchi. A lot of things are made in China. Not that big of a surprise, not that big of a deal. But making such a claim without noting that kimchi is a Korean dish has been clumsy at best, and at worst may have been intended to fire up nationalist fervor. So those last two comments, one by a journalist, kind of indicating that the reason behind this might have a lot more to do with nationalism. That if you don't have democracy, you're using nationalism and kind of these controversies to build up patriotism or support basically for their regime. That's obviously not a good thing, and might make some sense in why that's happening, because it seems very weird to claim kimchi as something that's Chinese. Because as far as the outside and the international community goes, there's about a 0% chance of the international community being convinced that kimchi is a Chinese food. I've never met somebody who knew what kimchi was who didn't know that it came from Korea. Fairly common knowledge. So my initial thoughts, maybe this was rooted in jealousy, also could be rooted in nationalism. Maybe it's something pushed by the media, by influencers to kind of stoke that nationalist spirit. But either way, obviously a concerning thing, because you have somebody very innocent like Hemji getting like the bad end of the deal simply because she liked a comment on a live stream. So the good news is that I've seen a lot of support for her on YouTube. I've seen her subscriber count. She got 130,000 subscribers in just the week after the controversy, where typically she gets around 60 to 70,000 per week. So almost double what she normally gets. Very nice to see the community kind of rallying and supporting her after she stood up for herself and she stood up for Korea. So those are my thoughts on the issue with kimchi and Korea and China and Hemji, of course. I only know what I've read, so I'm sure you guys may know a lot more than me, and certainly don't mean to offend or to say anything that's wrong, so I apologize if I did. But I do think it's important, and as somebody who really loves and enjoys and likes to share Korean culture, I thought this was important to talk about, to provide support for Hemji, and also get the international perspective, see what people around the world think of this issue. Hope this video was interesting. Let me know your thoughts on the story and the controversy, and what your thoughts are about it. And if you like videos like this, please subscribe. I will see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.